when you're in your 20s and 30s, you can not train, you can like not sleep, and you actually can get away with it for a while, right? But you're emptying the tank. If you don't do the things that refill your tank in your 40s or 50s or 60s, you'll hit a wall. Initially, the idea was to work with celebrities and athletes. Turns out Australia has very few celebrities. We just kept targeting CEOs and executives, and we've had some pretty rapid growth since.
Do you find, Lachlan, that there's generally a catalyst, like having kids, a health scare, or they're just tired of culmination of feeling like shit? What's the come to Jesus moment?
Usually some kind of health scare. So it's like you went to a doctor's appointment and it's like, do something, or like it's going to end in the next 5 years. They're down to like their last suit. They're like, I can only wear one suit anymore. And there's like 14 suits that I can't put on anymore. And kids is a big one. It's not the birth of their kids. It's when the kid has gone from.
Lachlan, welcome to the UltraGrowth podcast, man. How are you going?
I'm good, RJ. Thanks for having me on. Excited to be on.
Absolutely. Yeah, me too. I think you're doing different shit. And it's interesting. And I've been wanting to get you on the show for some time to really unpack what you're doing, what inspired you to do what you're doing, and what's next. Right. So look, I was checking out your social media today. Really, really interesting post about big box gyms and the lack of accountability in their business model. And we'll touch on that. But I think starting at ground zero, what inspired you to go on this journey of developing a gym that is highly niche, focused on busy, elite professionals?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, for us, being in me and my business partner Raf, we've been in the gym industry now for 10 years. We've owned gyms together. We started with CrossFit gyms in 2014. We opened our first facility in Marrickville, which is, for people who don't know, it's kind of like an industrial park. It was kind of gone through a massive gentrification in the last 10 years. But at the time when we settled there, it was still, back in the 1990s, it was considered the heroin capital of New South Wales. So you can kind of imagine the kind of vibe there. So we took a warehouse there. There was 5 business owners. So 3 of us bought half. And as you would imagine, 5 owners, 1 gym doesn't work. So we spent the next 7 years, opened 2 more facilities, kind of rebranded out of CrossFit into kind of like what you're seeing now, these kind of hybrid group fitness, kind of F45 with a bit heavier weights. Bought out the other business partners. So there was just 2 of us. That goes to 2019, 2020. And then we basically sold that brand to open what we're doing now. And the reason we sold was because the group fitness space was like really saturated, from like 2014 to 2020. The amount of offerings that came into the market, obviously F45 being like the market leader for a long time, just really hard to compete. They had like more money, more marketing power. They were more sexy because they were new. And we were just, our price kept getting pushed down. And so with that previous brand, Creature Fitness was the name, we moved it to kind of like a group, like a small group. So groups of 6, like somewhat semi-private PT model, which was kind of the early blueprint prototype for Lockeroom. But we knew that like rebranding that gym and in the space that we have, it was going to be too hard. So we thought like, let's sell it, let's start afresh. So we came out of COVID, we kind of went into COVID with that brand, sold it during COVID, as we were kind of coming out of it. And that gave us room to start Lockeroom. We actually did sign the lease of Lockeroom in January 2020. So yeah, 3 months later, we were told that gyms can't exist. And obviously it was a little bit concerning, but optimistic that things would return back to normal, which they did, thank God. And yeah, the inspiration was just, we saw from a personal business standpoint, the margins just weren't there for fitness anymore. I can tell you they're worse. They're worse now more than ever. So anything group fitness concept that's popping up now, just pray for them because their margins again absolutely squeezed. And we just felt like there was a really underserved market, which was the personal training market, which has had a load of really just mediocre offerings, and that whole space was kind of ripe for disruption. And so we wanted, and then it's not like there weren't personal training studios, but there was just nothing good out there in terms of a brand. So we wanted to create. Initially, the idea was to work with celebrities and athletes. Turns out Australia has very few celebrities, and the athletes are just not interested in coming into the city. So we pivoted to executives and CEOs. And I remember people at the time going, hey, man, look, it's great that you want to work with CEOs, but like they don't want to work with you. Like lower your expectations. You'll probably get like middle management people. And luckily we didn't take their advice. We just kept targeting CEOs and executives. And yeah, we were able to come 2021, March 2021, open our doors. And we've had some pretty rapid growth since. But yeah, really the inspiration was like massively underserved market. We kind of had some of that market in our previous gym because we were in the eastern suburbs. So we had some of those similar corporate type. And we just really did a few things that they really, really wanted that PTs weren't offering, which was like a booking system that they can do through an app where they can book at any time. So like they have personal training on demand. They obviously have a private facility that is specifically for them. So they're not going to have to like wait for equipment. They're not going to have machines. They're not going to run into their coworkers, or I should say like probably not their coworkers, like their younger team, kind of like the interns at the facility. So they've got their own private facility. And, you know, because we charge top of the market, we're able to hire the best people as well. So when they come into our brand, they just know for sure they're getting the best personal trainers in the industry right now. And we pay the most. We have a really, really, really difficult process in order to get a job here. So anytime someone comes in, it's like super high quality, which they love.
Let's unpack that. So first question, did COVID drive any of the decision making to get out of the previous model? Like, was that already happening, or did you decide to go into this model? Because I'm trying to get clear on the timing. It almost seems like you had already made the decision to move into this model, but COVID happened. Is that right?
Yeah, it's a good question. There was a little bit of like an overlap there. So we had the previous brand that we were trying to sell, Creature Fitness. There was a group fitness model in 2019. At the same time, we were like, Lockeroom is our next thing. And so we were trying to sell Creature Fitness. We'd signed a lease for Lockeroom. And when COVID hit, the timeline of that sale really dragged out. So there was like a 6-month overlap where we still had the existing brand and we still had Lockeroom. And basically what we decided to do in that 6 months is rather than just like hold the current model as it is, we actually pivoted it as a trial to what we would, because Lockeroom was under construction. So we're like, all right, well, we can't really do anything. We can't really sign people up there or trial it. Why don't we just turn our current business that we're selling, because we were selling it to the manager at the time. He didn't mind us playing around with the model a little bit. And so we spent 6 months like downsizing the size of the classes and throwing in a few different elements that we would use at Lockeroom, like individualized programming and a few different apps that we wanted to roll out. So it kind of became for 6 months this little basically testing ground for what Lockeroom would eventually become. And then, yeah, once we kind of came out of the lockdowns and there was a little bit more fresh air, it's like, okay, gyms are reopening and like the restrictions were lifting. We sold the brand. And then a few months later, we opened Lockeroom.
Did you find that in many, yes, it was a curse, I suppose, for gyms, what happened during COVID, but did you find that there was some unforeseen benefits coming out of COVID that helped your business model in respect to like an individualized model? Like people don't want to be around other people because of social distance, or like, was there any like, do you find, have you reflected upon that?
Oh yeah, like for sure. We absolutely got the benefit of like, it's a private gym with heaps of space, you know, and there's 8 people in the gym at one time. That helped us probably for at least a year, I would say. And then obviously people started to forget about it and they stopped wearing masks and stuff. But initially it was like, oh, perfect. I don't want to go back to fitness. It was dirty already, right? Like it was, it was, it was disgusting already. And now that we've like been made hyper aware of like disease and COVID and stuff, like I'm definitely not going back there. So that helped us initially. And then I think also, a lot of those gyms like lost a lot of staff, you know, like a lot of personal trainers left the industry or moved to Queensland. A lot of the group fitness brands shut down. Like there's no 45 from the city anymore. Like they've all shut down. There was like 4 or 5 of them. So a lot of the competition went away. And yeah, we kind of just like took advantage of it at the time.
I remember, like back in the day, I was a sales rep, right? And I liked fitness first because I would go wherever I was selling, I'd just take my bag and I'd hit local gyms, right? It was convenient. And that's what kind of kept me with them. But I remember particularly in Sydney where you started to see a lot of disruption of fitness first in ethnic areas, right? Like all the fitness first in like Western Sydney, really out of the eastern suburbs, the Shire and the northern beaches kind of just closed down because people weren't vibing it. And then you saw so you I felt like for a long time they had this kind of captive market and then they were disrupted. They didn't know who they were. Like who are we gonna be now, right? Our PTs are kind of good, but they're like first year, 6 months in. You know what I mean? And then you had this proliferation of, to your earlier point, I suppose there was a bit of Anytime Fitness and those guys came in, which were no frills, come on your own. But then you had F45, which we know now has become kind of a disaster, I think, after they went IPO. Why do you think they did such a good job at differentiating? Was it just timing and cash, or was there like a culture piece there? Like what was behind their success, do you think, initially?
F45.
Yeah.
So F45, I mean, it's a super interesting case study. I mean, I pray to the streaming gods that we have Netflix series documentary at some point, because I think it'll be so good. If all the rumors and all the stuff that's happened behind the scenes is true, then I think it would be a great Netflix series. But putting that aside, the commercial success was based off, I think, just the timing. Like there was this real gap between CrossFit had obviously taken off like, absolute lightning bolt. It was so successful, but it was super unpolished, and the CrossFit experience was very inconsistent. But it opened up a whole market of people that wanted group fitness in like a community that was, under an hour, and it wasn't in a fitness first. Group fitness before that was like a Les Mills class, like a body attack or a body pump in a fitness first, or some variation of that. And so F45 is like, let's take what people love about CrossFit, which is like community, a group workout together, like the energy, the instructors, but let's polish it up. Let's take away all the difficult stuff that people, especially women, don't like, which is like the heavy weights, the Olympic lifting, the complex gymnastics movements. We'll get rid of all of that, and we'll just make it about the massive endorphin rush from high intensity cardio. We'll make it 45 minutes. We'll put a nice brand on it, and we'll just run it up super fast. And they just came out with a really simple product. They just built quickly. Like they just, obviously that was their downfall in the end. They built so fast that the operations just weren't where they needed to be to sustain, the long-term growth of those gyms. But yeah, they sold them like hotcakes. It was perfect timing. There was a market there for it. And then I think it's a good lesson that if you have a product that fits, you've got a timeline in which people like are really, really enjoying that hype, and you just got to sell like crazy in that timeline. Obviously, long term, it didn't work out, but yeah, I think it was just perfect positioning, great timing, and then just an awesome sales strategy.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it was initially a really cool Aussie story, right? Like they tapped the US market. And then I've heard rumors of like inflated revenues and like all kinds of dodgy shit, which to your point, I think you signaled if they actually, a lot of these rumors are true, would probably make some really interesting TV, right?
Yeah, yeah. There's some insider trading and misleading investors, and there's a class action lawsuit now, and they delisted off the stock exchange. So they've got a whole lot of problems. One of the founders is on the run. So yeah,
He's in the
there's a
Cayman
lot going
Islands.
on.
Yeah. Uh, so yeah, I mean, look, it's interesting. Do you think that the F45 actually gave the same level of community that CrossFit gyms did and do? Because I don't feel that it's there because of the speed. It seems like a bit of a meat market, right? F45, like
Yeah, it's good. It's good. Good observation. I think overall the communities were not as strong as CrossFit gyms because, like you said, it's constant. So like if you've done an F45 class, you're in and you're out, and it's nonstop. There's no time to talk to anyone. So
they're
I
like,
think if you
fuck
see
off,
this,
get out. We
yeah,
got the next class. Yeah.
pretty much. Yeah, it's like finish, like go, like move, because like he's starting. Like it was back to back. Like one of my current staff members, he actually ran. Was a minority stakeholder and a head coach in the best F45 in Sydney for a long time. So they had 500 members, and he said it was like chaos. It was just in and out, in and out, in and out. There's some community aspect to it, but nothing nothing to this day could ever, hold the torch to the CrossFit community. Like that's the strongest community in terms of gyms I've ever seen, ever been a part of. And it's just the way it was set up, just the culture around the training. It was new. You felt like you were part of some kind of exercise cult. Whereas every iteration after that, it's just become a little bit more like, oh, what's the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, which is why these current group fitness models, the thing that they don't have, they don't realize because they got their blinders on, they love their model. And I don't fault them for it, but they are just the next flavor. And so like they come in, they think they're different, they got this thing, but then that same group of people, once they see the next thing, they're just going to jump to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing and the next thing.
They've got this body fit now, I think in Melbourne, and someone was raving about it and they were telling me you're timed and like they've got all these gadgets. And I was like, well, sounds like F45 just with gadgets, right? With CrossFit, one of the things I always wondered, because I would like went to a gym when I was living in the Central Coast of New South Wales that was like doing CrossFit, but they weren't like licensed. Like, did they actually have control of their brand and license? Because it seemed a bit like hodgy-podgy. Like, was it an accreditation process? Like, did they actually manage that well, or was it like a free-for-all?
Yeah, so the CrossFit used an affiliate model. So you basically pay a license fee to use the name CrossFit, but different to a franchise, there's beyond just paying like to use the name, there's no other further instruction given. So you can be doing Pilates and call it CrossFit Pilates, or you can do CrossFit swimming and just have a 50-meter lap pool and just be doing swim lessons. Like it
That's
actually
wild.
doesn't matter. And all you need is a weekend certification at CrossFit level 1. So yeah, there wasn't much. In the beginning, it was a lot more similar, but by the end of it, it was like go to one gym, get a completely different experience to the other gym.
All right, well, let's pivot to the locker room now that we've bagged everyone else. So not intentionally, but look, I think it's
I'm happy to do it.
I like talking about business models, right? I think it's interesting, and I think what you've done in a saturated, tough market, it's sexy. Every young person comes out, they're going to be a PT and they're going to like kill it, and they end up at Fitness First for 50 years, right? Like I think you've done well, and it's been great to watch someone actually have the brass to try to differentiate. So let's go to, you got the keys. Everyone's told you you're crazy. You realize that Australians, there's no actors, all the Daryl B and C got no money, and all the good ones have left. And how do you actually start without, I suppose, giving away the secret sauce? Like, do you kind of give like a free trial to people? Like, is that how you started to build some mass within the gym to get them interested? Like, what did you do?
Yeah, so initially we joined a business club that we're still a part of, the Club United Business Cup.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. And we went in there and we like pitched it to before the doors were open to 30, 40 people. And there was probably about 10, 15 of them that signed up. We take memberships up front for 6 and 12 months. So the benefit of that meant that we were able to, basically cash flow every time we brought someone in, like the next few months of business. And it just kind of built from there, because it was so new, it was so different, word of mouth spread really quickly. And so we kind of got it up to like 40, 50 clients, just kind of word of mouth, a little bit of marketing organically. But then what really was like a major tipping point for us was we had an AFR article get released about us. And the opening line was something like Lockeroom turns down 9 of 10 people that apply. And then it was like Sydney's most exclusive gym. And our inquiry channel just went fucking nuts that day. Like it was insane. And that kind of got us up to like 100 clients. And then from there, it was just like, we just kept rolling with that. But if it wasn't for that AFR article, there's no way we could have got to where we are now.
Okay, so let's talk about your style of, I suppose, personal training and just the style of the gym. So does that mean if I sign up, I have a highly curated experience and my program is really holistic? And like, what is that? Is there like a massive onboarding process? And then like, am I given one PT or multiple PTs? Like what's the actual journey look like, the customer journey?
Yeah, it's a good question. So our method is called, we basically trademark the exponential executive. So what that means is we're more focused on what you look like and how you're going to perform, how you're going to be physically ready over the next 3 decades of your life. You know, for most of our clients, that's their 40s, 50s, and 60s. And with taking such a long-term approach, we address like 3 pillars of health and fitness. So health, which involves like body composition, which involves sleep and your blood work. The second pillar is fitness. And so that's concerned with your VO2 max, so your top end aerobic capacity, your endurance, so your long steady state endurance, and then also your energy levels as well, right? So like how motivated, how productive are you throughout the day? How energized is your body? And then the third pillar is strength. So what is your injury risk and your resiliency? How much lean muscle mass do you have? And also what's your strength? Like how strong are you? So we use those 3 pillars. We basically have an entire assessment protocol. So it's called the physical. And we like kind of take you through all these different tests, as you alluded to. It takes about an hour. From that, we get all the data. We give you like a wearable. We start, basically there's like 3 core habits, which we start tracking. So weigh-ins, activity levels, and then attendance. So how many weight sessions you do. And then there's like secondary habits underneath that as well. So that's the system you go into. So 3 core habits, and then all these secondary habits. And then it's obviously tailored towards your goals. Like the program itself that we write for you is individualized to you. And then obviously the nutrition support, the lifestyle support is also tailored specifically to people's goals. Because some people come in, they just want to build muscle. Most people just want to lose fat. Some people want to do a bit of both. Some people are performance athletes. They come in, their body composition is pretty good, but they want to like get fitter. They want to run marathons, ultras, that sort of stuff. And so we basically just like do the physical. That's the assessment process. That's once every 6 months. They get the E30, which is their monthly report, which is like all their data points and how they're tracking on those data points. That's a monthly report. And then there's obviously just like the sessions and the coaching in between those data points. So it's not a super lengthy onboarding process, but it's way more comprehensive than what they would have got previously.
Do they come and work out whenever they want, or are they generally PT'd? Like, or is it a combination
all
of both? So
all PTs.
So all their sessions are PT
Correct.
based. Right. Okay. And has it been interesting for you, given that you're focused on elite execs? You know, like, did you have assumptions of the type of people and the levels of fitness? Like, has there been any interesting things that you were like, oh, like from focusing on this demographic, you might not have realized? Or is it like, what's the flavor of people, I suppose, you get in their goals and their ambitions? Like, I would imagine all of them are driven. Does that help? Or does it mean sometimes they're just driven with bad habits too? Like, what's that look like?
Yeah. I mean, I think, people maybe have a slight misconception of the type of client that we work with here. They might think he's the Patrick, is it Patrick Bateman, the guy from American Psycho, wakes up like in super good shape, puts his Lycra on, does like a 400K cycle before work, drinks like 2 espressos, and then comes to Lockeroom. We got like, that's like 1% of the clients that we have. Um, most of our clients are like very time poor, between 40 and 55 years old, either run a business or they're a C-level executive, somewhere between 10 to 20% of their body weight overweight. They need to lose 5 to 20% of their body weight. Yeah, just too many bad habits, like drink too much, eat out too much, underhydrated, poor body composition, poor blood markers. So really most people that come in, and that was surprising to me, is that they just need to do the basics. Like they're just really out of touch with the basics. And I'm a part of the generation, and even the generations younger than me, was like way more clued into health and fitness. So some way less of those bad habits. Exercise is way more normal. For Gen X, which is, people between 40 and 55 years old, like exercising and doing weights and like eating healthy and protein and stuff, that information was non-existent back when they were growing up. So the most common thing was like eat whole grains and go for a run. That was like the best fitness advice. And like drink 1 wine a day because that's like good for your blood pressure. So they just got bad timing, honestly. They just got loaded up with really, really poor mainstream health advice. And it's just like undoing a lot of those beliefs like fasting and yeah, wine every night and supplements they don't need, and yeah, just all this weird stuff, like too much cardio. And so it's just kind of unwinding a lot of those kind of like old school beliefs, and then just really honestly just doing the basics over and over and over again, which to my generation is like, I know this stuff, but to them, it's like, hey, wake up, drink half a liter of water, and don't touch coffee for the first 90 minutes. So like, you changed my life. I can't believe how much better I feel when I do that. So yeah, I would just say that it's like absolute beginners.
Yeah, it's an interesting observation and some commentary there, Lachlan, because like the thing about Gen X is, and I always have a joke with my C-suite because my CTO and my CFO who are instrumental for me, they're like Gen Xers. And I'm like, man, we need more Gen Xers in this business, right? Because they just get shit done, right? They work hard, they've been driven by boomers, and they're dependable. They'll work their ass off, like ungodly hours. Like, I'm Gen Y, so that we were kind of when we started complaining about work-life balance, like they didn't care, they didn't worry about that, right? And so in some ways, there's some really good disciplines, but you're right. They have a lifetime of habits, bad sleep, bad diet, things that they've accumulated. And I think the interesting part about your model that I want to ask you about is given that you monitor so much, have you developed then partnerships with support products, right? Because I'm seeing nutrition, I'm seeing doctors, I'm seeing physios. Like, are you a one-stop shop for all that?
Yeah, we have some stuff that we refer out to, but a lot of it is in house, like the blood panels and stuff. We don't take the blood, but we have our own like company that does scripts for us. So we have like a custom biomarker script, and then we send it out to someone that's contracted with us to analyze it. So we generate like all our own reports and all our own recommendations. All the supplements that we recommend, we don't make any supplements. At some point, though, we have so much data now on what our clients need. There's a few supplements that we would combine together and just make our own because it's like they all need the same stuff. Okay, not enough water soluble fiber, not enough electrolytes. Like we there's heaps of these like anti hangover powders and stuff now. We'd make some of those, mix it in with charcoal to help with like to offset some of the damage of drinking that happens more than we'd like. Some sleep stuff. So just like a few bits like that will eventually integrate in-house when we're bigger. But then in terms of like, all the nutrition stuff is easy. We do all that in-house. Obviously, there are nutrition apps and stuff that we leverage. At some point, we'd like our own nutrition app to integrate with some of the other apps that we use. But as often as we can, we try and keep that stuff in-house. The only thing I can't imagine we'd ever have is like a wearable. And most people have a wearable: Apple Watch, Whoop, Oura Ring, Garmin. We just need something to track steps accurately. So
I mean, that is I suppose, the scalable part of your business, right? Like that's the part of your business that you can take, I suppose, beyond Sydney in a way that I would imagine, given the quality of your gym, that leads into my next question. Like at a certain point, do you tap out with the ability to have more people or more clients in this gym, given that you only have, I suppose, 8 at one time? There's a certain amount of hours and PTs in the day. Does that mean that you have to create more sites, or you want to create more sites? And is there an expansion piece there? What's the go there?
yeah, so we actually just had a meeting about it this morning, me and my business partner, about how we can expand more space in our current facilities. But we are kind of reaching that tipping point now. We have 2 locations in Sydney. We're looking for a third, all within the same area. And we're looking at a site in Melbourne as well this time next year. So we will continue to expand. We obviously want to dominate Australia first and then look to go overseas. America is just such a great market for us, so we will get over there eventually. And we've already had some early talks with some potential investors to help with that expansion, but that's still a couple of years away. We just want to. We spent a lot of time this year just perfecting our product and just getting the delivery of it really smooth. That exponential executive, our method that I mentioned we use, we only launched that like officially 3 months ago. So it's very, very new. Um, but it was really just a refinement and a repackaging of everything that we're currently doing. And then with about another 6 months of just making that really, really solid, we'll be ready to scale up. Because I think the one mistake that gyms make is they try and scale too fast. And obviously F45 is a really good example. There's a balance, right? You don't want to scale so slowly that the markets can catch up and you kind of lose your advantage. But most people have like way too many problems in their product, especially a high-end product where you charge a lot for it. People, they kind of judge you by a really different set of standards. If you charge someone $40 a week, it's $40 a week. So there's a limit to how much you can ask for. If you charge people $400 a week, their expectation is a lot higher. And if you start burning your reputation in a small market, it's going to be very hard to grow. It's kind of run out of market pretty quick. So yeah, for us, it's just getting everything super tight, getting the product really polished, which we're basically at now. And now it's like a good time to scale up after like 3 years.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I think the challenge for you guys is QA, right? Like, does that mean Lachlan has to move to Melbourne and, you have to have one of you or the other partner? How do you manage the quality there? Do you bring in another gun that a proven person in that particular market? It's funny because I was actually speaking to Sean Pastuch a couple years ago, who knows you, right? In Long Island. Yeah. He's a good guy, right? And I was like, oh, do you know
Great
these
guy.
guys? Yeah. And he was actually one of my first guests on the show. Right. And
Oh,
he's
cool.
actually,
Awesome.
He's I mean, so you got people in different countries that know you guys, man. Like, so you guys are obviously making a mark, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, Sean actually was on our podcast a few years ago as well. We actually visited him out there in his home in Long Island. Is, as all Americans are, very, very hospitable. So we spent some time out there, had dinner with him and stuff. And yeah, no, that was a good trip.
Yeah. You touched on the accountability piece. Is it tricky to keep your clients accountable when they're paying so much? Like, how do you manage that, right? Like, because I could imagine that's tricky, right? They're like, well, I'm paying you, right? Like, how do you then push back on that level of arrogance that you could potentially get in this kind of situation?
I do think the price point makes them accountable in some ways. It's like, fuck, I'm going to pay this much money. I need to do something. I can't waste. Some do waste the money. They don't show up, but some are like, well, if I'm going to pay this much, I may as well show up and get something out of it. When they pay $100 a week, they're happy to just let that money go. They pay 4 or 5 times that amount. They're going to start showing up. That's one element of it. The second piece is like, well, okay, you are paying us so much, so we're going to over deliver on the accountability. We're going to call you. I mean, we set a lot of the expectations at the start. We have a pretty like in-depth conversation with them about, hey, this is what we expect from you. This is how we're going to communicate with you. This is how we expect you to communicate with us. And sometimes we show people the door after 30 days.
You have to, right? So, because I think the downside is if there's a perception that there's no results at the locker room, that's a bad thing, right? Like you gotta offload people before that becomes a thing. I would imagine, right?
Yeah, that's some people, when I tell them, oh, yeah, every now and then someone will pay us the money and not show up, they go, oh, it's great. You want heaps of those people. But actually, it's the opposite because we have you only get one reputation, right? So if they go around, even though it's completely their fault that they didn't show up or they didn't do anything, they'll still go around and be, yeah, I didn't get it, man. I paid all this money for this gym and like, I didn't get a result. They just took my money. The reality is you didn't show up once, but they won't tell that to their friends, right? They'll just be like, oh, I paid them this money. I got busy. They didn't really help me. And so, yeah, it's just a huge waste of money. And that's not really good in the circles that, we want to be a part of. So yeah, it's important for us that we make people show up and get a result.
Do you find that your 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 clients are able to tap into the disciplines that they have in their career and their job and connect the dots and see their ability to transfer that into fitness? Because I've always been bewildered by high performing people at work that aren't able to connect the dots on transferring that into other areas of their life. Like, what's your commentary and feedback on that?
Yeah, that is an interesting question because you would think like you're so good in your job, like can't you just translate those disciplines over to your training? And it's not necessarily true. It's like Probably the best way to think about it is they're so committed in one area of their life that they don't have the energy and willpower to make other areas of their life keep up with their work. And whenever you start something new, especially as you get older, once you're in your mid-40s, early 50s, some clients even early 60s, it's like they've been doing something a certain way for so long. It's just really hard to break those habits. In the same way that, like, if you told them to work less and care less about their work and like take a back seat and take a holiday and like not think about work all the time, that would be really hard for them to do because they've just spent 25, 30 years of like late nights, working constantly, working on holidays, taking phone calls, going the extra mile to excel in their career. That's just a habit that they've ingrained. So we just look at it from a habit standpoint. It's like, okay, you just need to build new habits, even though in theory, you should be able to build them easily because you have really good discipline in your work. It's still a new habit in their life. And any new habit just takes time to build. So I think probably maybe what's different is once they do see results, they get a little bit of momentum, they start doubling down quite quickly. But we are very careful to, this is like super common with our clientele, is they're all or nothing. They're like, I'm either doing it all the way 100% or I'm not doing it at all, which I think is the most dangerous mindset to have, which it sounds sexy. It's like, dude, tell me what to do and I get that shit done. But inevitably, like health and fitness journey will have ups and downs in the same way that anything, any ambitious goal or any big target at their work or in their family or wherever, it will have ups and downs on the way there. And if you set the expectation that you're going to be 100% perfect, or if you the first slip up, you're going to be at 0%, you will fail. You will fail. So we tell our clients like, and we're just part of our program as well, but we just tell them like, hey, look, there's road bumps. Like there are weeks, there are months that you're going to fall off track, but we're doing this for the next 3 decades. So don't worry about it. Get back on the horse, get back onto it. And our most successful clients realize that. They go, have a bad week here and there, have a bad month, and maybe I lose 6-7 kilos, but then I had a bad week, I gained 2. But it's like, all right, well, it doesn't mean you have to stop. It doesn't mean it didn't work. It just means you need to get back onto those habits. So ultimately, those are the conversations that we have. Those are the best clients that realize, okay, it's a long journey. Don't be in a rush. Figure out a way that I can do this sustainably and maintain those habits.
I think it's a really great answer. So I'm CEO of a fairly large firm, and I start working very early, generally. But so if you were to look at my day, you'd think that like I'm a workaholic, but I've gone into the day building my day around my exercise and my meditation, right? Like it's a very different mindset where I'm actually building my day around things that actually help me move and groove and stay connected and well in life. And I think that's a different mindset, right? So I think for a lot of people, to your point, they look at it as I don't have time for it, right? Sometimes when I'm in my biggest problem, I'll go for a really long run. I live in the bush because going more into the problem actually makes it worse. I need to take myself out. That can create some anxiety though, right? Because you're like, I need to just get shit done. I need to be in it, right? And I also think a lot of people think exercise is an event. There's times I got a mat in my office, I'll do burpees, I'll do whatever I need to do sometimes to move. I believe in PT. Like I think anyone that's going on a personal transformation needs that level of accountability, community, because it's an identity piece, right? We don't yet have the willpower. We don't see the wins. It's a compounding effect, I think. And I think that you've nailed it, right? I think some people are over-indexed to one part of their life and they just don't know and they don't have a holistic mindset, right? So they're not building their life around the things that keep them healthy. They're just doing shit, right? And you've got a really tough gig because you're trying to intervene.
Yeah. We always say we're the thing you will spend the most money on and have the least immediate gratification. It's like, all right, cool. Now you paid all this money. Usually if you pay that much money, it's like, cool, now I've got this cool watch or I've got this cool car or like I've got this event or this holiday I'm about to go on. It's like, all right, now the work begins. Now you have to get up early. You have to give up some of the foods you like. You have to change some of the habits. Like it's a painful process, right? But on the other side of the most painful things that you'll do will be some of the, the greatest rewards in life. And I think to add more to what you were saying as well, is when it's like that saying, what got you here won't get you there. So it's like what got them success in their career is when you're in your 20s and 30s, you have the benefit of youth. And so like you can not train, you can like not sleep, and you actually can get away with it for a while, right? But you're emptying the tank. And if you don't do the things that refill your tank in your 40s or 50s or 60s, you'll hit a wall. Like I've had clients come in and go, I don't know what it is. Like I used to be sweet. I used to, travel between different time zones and not sleep and eat like shit. And he goes, I've never had burnout my whole life, but now I just don't know if I can go on. I'm exhausted. I'm tired. I feel like shit. We do their blood work and it's like, well, your testosterone's tanked. Your blood pressure's up. You've got no calcium, no magnesium, no vitamin D. Like you've just depleted every single store in your body, just revving the engine at max and just not putting any good fuel back in the tank. So that's what exercise, that's what good sleep is, that's what good nutrition is. It's just like refilling the tank over and over again. If you can, once they connect those dots, they're like, oh wow, if I do this regularly, I actually feel way better and I have more time for family, I have more energy for work. Once they make that connection, it's like they just can't go back from there.
Do you find, Lachlan, that there's generally a catalyst, like having kids, a health scare, or they're just tired of culmination of feeling like shit? Like what's the come to Jesus moment, if any, generally?
There's always a come to Jesus moment. Is always, and you nailed the big three. It's because I do believe people can change, but only at their breaking point. That's what I always say, and that's what we've observed is like people won't change just because like things are okay, but they could be better. And it's like, oh no, things are fucking shit, and if I don't change, it's going to be a disaster. And that's usually some kind of health scare. So it's like you went to a doctor's appointment, and it's like, do something, or like it's going to end in the next 5 years. It might be like stepping on the scale and they're like, holy shit, I can't believe I thought I was 98. I'm 107. It might be like they're good. They're down to like their last suit. They're like, I can only wear one suit anymore. And there's like 14 suits that I can't put on anymore. I don't want to get a new suit. And kids is a big one. It's like, it's not the birth of their kids. It's like when the kid has gone from maybe like 5 to 10 and they're like, I can't keep up. Like, I just literally can't chase my kid anymore. And so they're like, mortality is staring them in the face. Or, a relatively common one as well is a divorce. They're like, they're back on the market and they're like, shit,
It's in their profile, shit. They're looking at their faces.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. They're like, I got no chance at this body to pick up a new partner.
Especially in Sydney, man. Especially in Sydney, right? Water everywhere. Everyone's topless. Yes.
Yeah. So those are the come to Jesus moments for sure.
Yeah, man. Look, Lachlan, let's land the plane here, man. It's been really remarkable conversation. I really enjoyed talking about fitness, talking about the executive journey, talking about your gym. I hope you come to Melbourne. Some of the guys I know are going to Gurner's gym. It's a bit too high-five for me. They go in there and they're like hanging out and doing like all this fancy shit. Like I like to train like a Spartan, right? A little bit. Like I'm not gonna go there yet, right? So you when you come here, you let me know, and I'd be keen to check out your gym. But for those that want to learn more about you, the gym, where can they find more out about you, man?
Yeah, me personally, I mean, I put a lot of content up on LinkedIn, as we kind of chatted about earlier. So if they want to like tap into my thoughts and some of my ideas, just follow me on LinkedIn. And then, you can just like follow the gym, Lockeroom on Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, those sorts of platforms as well.
Excellent. Well, look, thank you for your time today, man. Really appreciate you, Lachlan.
No, thanks for the good questions. I always appreciate some things that haven't been asked before. So yeah, it's a good interview. Thanks, RJ.
Thanks, man.